Okay, so how I learned emotional intelligence. To start off, I want to address a question that a lot of people have, which is it even possible for an autistic person to learn about emotions and emotional intelligence? And the answer to that question is unambiguously yes, of course we can. So, with that in mind, the first message that I want to tell you today is that there is hope, essentially. So, if you're on the spectrum and you find dealing with emotions really, really difficult, my message to you is there is hope. Don't give up. You can improve. I know what it's like to be in that place of putting in a ridiculous amount of effort every day and feeling like you're making virtually no progress, right? I've been there. I was in that place for over 10 years. So today I'm going to share two key turning points from my journey from bashing my head against a brick wall every day, making virtually no progress, to wow, I finally get this. This makes sense. Why did nobody tell me it was so easy? So, as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit excited, a little bit. I like to understate things. I'm obviously quite excited about this topic. It's almost as if I need to go around making a confession to people saying, like an alcoholic at an AA meeting or something. Hi, my name's Paul. My special interest is emotional intelligence. I think about it all day, every day. Think about it, talk about it, read about it, blog about it, evidently. I've recently started an online business teaching it. So it's a problem and I need help. And maybe you can relate to that level of obsession in your own special interest. And the reason I mention that now is because that level of interest can often get in the way. So I don't want to give you the impression that I've always been good in this area. And at the same time, I don't want to give you the impression that I've somehow magically got this all figured out and I don't have anything left to learn. Last year, I ran a 4-week emotional intelligence course and I learned so much just by delivering the course. I mean, I wrote the course, right? It was all here already, but just by interacting with the people in the course and delivering it, I learned so much from that. So it's definitely been a journey, despite the fact that it has been my special interest for as long as I can remember. So before we go into too much more detail, I thought I'd give you a quick overview of the 3 stages that I've identified with the turning points that I mentioned earlier. So yes, I'm an engineer. Yes, I like graphing stuff. Let's move on. So I've broken my journey up into 3 stages, right? So the first one was where I wasn't really making much progress, and that was because I was being your typical little Aspie anthropologist trying to study the little humans around me, trying to just by watching and figuring out what was going on. So that wasn't very helpful. The second stage was where I went from being an observer to being a participant, and I learned significantly more in that stage. And then the third stage was where I learned how I learn. And I also learned the reason why it had been difficult for me in the first place. And that intellectual knowledge allowed me to focus on more helpful things. And that, again, greatly accelerated the learning. So, to give you some insight into this first stage, which I've called the observation stage, um, I have a memory of when I was about 3 years old in kindergarten. And what we were doing is the teacher was teaching us a song with like actions and things, and all the kids were doing it, and it's, very cute. So I was watching the other kids all do the same thing, and I was thinking, how do they know what to do? And my attention was focused so strongly on watching them and observing their behavior and trying to figure out what was going on that I missed the fact that they were all watching the teacher, and the teacher was doing all these actions and they were just copying. So that's an example of how I was trying to figure out behavior by observation, but I was just going down completely the wrong track. And everyone else was learning these social skills and learning how to make friends and learning how to talk to people and all that kind of stuff. And I just wasn't getting it. And I would be asking people, how do you do this? I would see the people who were really good at it and I would try and get them to explain it to me, to teach it to me. But what I found is that they just didn't know at an intellectual level what they were doing. It turns out they were just following their instinct. And it turns out that's how all of the other kids knew what to do in a social situation, because they would just follow their instincts and I would follow my instincts and I would end up over here and they would end up over here, and somehow I'd be the odd one out and I'd thought that there was this information that I'd missed, whereas actually it was just everyone followed their instinct and my instinct happened to be different. And it seemed like no matter how much I analysed the situation and tried to figure out what was going on and figure out what I was supposed to be doing, it just didn't actually translate into an increase of my skill of being able to actually go out and do it. So that was the observation stage, where I was trying to figure out what was going on by looking from the outside. The next stage is where I managed to get myself on the inside and get some first-hand experience. Now, this happened quite by accident. Some of you may have seen my other videos on my dreadlock story. This photo on the left is me at the age of 16. At the time, I didn't have a single friend outside of school. Right? The photo on the right was taken at my 17th birthday, just a couple of months later. So you can see that there was a pretty radical change to my outward appearance, right, with getting dreadlocks. And what happened was that because my outside appearance changed, the way people perceived me radically changed. All of a sudden, I was no longer seen as boring and shy and awkward, and my social life exploded virtually overnight. I won't go into it too much here, but you can check out some of my other videos from when I first started this blog if you want to hear more about how I was using that hairstyle as a coping strategy. But the important part for this discussion is that it brought me from being an observer on the outside to being thrown in the deep end, and all of a sudden people were talking to me and I had to respond. So I couldn't run away. I had to practice in real life. Even if I didn't know the answer, I didn't have time to sit and think what would be a good thing to say theoretically in this situation. I just had to respond. So that was an incredibly formative period, especially for a couple of years. All of a sudden I had my very, very first real friendship group outside of school. I had friends that I would chat to on the phone a couple of times a week. I had my first girlfriend, and all of those things meant that I was learning all these skills firsthand that I probably would have missed out on if I was still in that observation stage. So the practice stage is characterized by not knowing what to do, not knowing the answer, not thinking about it too much, and just trying anyway, and then using that trial and error to learn for next time. So that was very helpful, but the next big thing that really accelerated my learning in this area was discovering a theoretical framework so that I could look at behavior and look at what's happening and actually put it somewhere useful for me. Maybe that doesn't make sense. I'll try and explain. So I'm a pattern thinker, which means that I have to put everything that I learn has to be learned as part of a pattern. And I once described my brain as like a giant filing cabinet where if I know where something goes, then I put it there and it works great. But if I don't know where a piece of information goes, then it just doesn't stick and I can't really learn anything from that. So a lot of people on the autism spectrum really need to know the why behind what's going on in order for something to make sense. And I'm definitely one of those people. So when people were telling me things like, you need to make eye contact with people, I'm like, yeah, but why? Why do I need to do that? You need to say hello to people. Why do I need to do that? You need to do this. You can't do that. All of these things, like, why do I have to follow what everyone else is doing? Why can't I do it my way? There are actually really, really good answers to all of those questions. But I couldn't find any of those answers until I had the theoretical framework with which to use to go about trying to answer those questions. So this framework that I'm talking about, it answers questions like, what is an emotion? Like biologically, what is an emotion? Neurologically, what is an emotion? How does it work? How can we measure it? All of those kind of things that allow me to take bits and pieces of information and create this theory of, now I really understand what's going on. I can see behind the behavior of people to what is underlying that behavior. So to give you a sense of what I'm talking about when I say theoretical framework, I made a flowchart of emotional feedback where there's sensory input and automatic reactions and a conscious control loop that sort of has indirect control trying to manage the whole thing. I won't go into exactly how that works now. Hopefully I'll make some more resources on that later. It's actually, I devote 2 lessons of the 4-week emotional intelligence course to that. So there's quite a lot in there. Okay, so that's a little bit about my journey. I'm going to leave you with 2 pieces of advice for how you can improve your own emotional intelligence skills. And they're linked to the 2 turning points that I was telling you about earlier. So the first one is practice. You don't need to know what you're doing to learn a lot from practice. The very, very first Aspergers support group meeting I went to, I met a man who was telling me that he used to be a taxi driver, and he learned how to have small talk and how to do small talk from hundreds and hundreds of conversations with his customers as a taxi driver. You just practice and practice and practice, and eventually you'll find, well, this worked and this didn't work, and by trial and error, you can significantly improve your skills that way. The second way, which also helped me immensely, was learning that theoretical framework and answering those questions of why. So hopefully I can help you out with that as I make more free resources on this video blog and also my written blog on emotional intelligence and how emotions work, focusing both on the theory behind what's actually going on and also how to actually practice it in real life. I also created a dedicated website called emotionsexplained.com.au. You could think of AU for Australia or AU for autism. And on that, I will be running once-off webinars online, so anyone can dial in from anywhere in the world to go deeper into some of these topics, because it's kind of hard to teach this with a one-way forum. You really need it to be interactive. And there's also the 4-week online emotional intelligence course, which is quite comprehensive. It's 12 lessons delivered over 4 weeks via email with interactive webinars in between. So for everything related to that, check out emotionsexplained.com.au. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me share my passion for emotional intelligence. And yeah, it'll be fun. Good luck on your journey, and I'll see you another time. Bye. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for weekly content just like this one. If you'd like to get even more involved, you can join the discussion on social media or support me by becoming a patron. Finally, I value your time, and you'll notice all my videos are ad-free, so please help me to cover what you want to hear by leaving me a comment and telling me what you think. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you another time. Okay, love you, bye-bye.